Hi, this is Daniel, and you're watching Unrivaled Investing. This is a no hype financial channel just focused on the fundamentals. We are mission focused, trying to find you exceptional companies and unrivaled investments. Today, we are looking at Nano-X Imaging Limited. The ticker is NNOX. Why did this get my interest? First of all, it's a new IPO. Second, several loyal YouTube subscribers, several loyal Journey subscribers asked me to look at it, so I'm making this video for you. Also, they seemingly have a revolutionary technology that's tapping into a huge market. So I'm interested in learning more. Whenever you have a company that is potentially disrupting a huge market, that could be a great situation that you just buy and hold for years at a time. I want to learn, is there actually stake to this sizzle that's worth owning, that's worth at least digging a little more into? So there's enough to warrant a look. Several smart people have asked me about it, and now I want to learn for myself. And so what's the goal of this video? One is, what is Nano-X Imaging Limited? Once again, ticker NNOX. What's their business model? What's the opportunity? Do they have 10x potential? And then my summary thoughts. But before digging in, if you like learning about potential multi-baggers, make sure you subscribe to this channel. If you're already a subscriber, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. It helps with the Google algorithm. Also, if you want to follow my personal journey to find these multi-baggers, to find potential multi-baggers, go to unrivaledinvesting.com, click on Journey, and remember, all it takes is potentially one multi-bagger to change your personal life journey. So if you're interested, follow my life journey as I'm looking for these multi-baggers by going to unrivaledinvesting.com. By the way, I love it when you say, hey, this video opened my eyes, it's great analysis. Here's the next company. I think it has this unrivaled value proposition. Take a look. And I add it to the list, and eventually, boom, 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 we are going to knock them out. So please leave a ticker as with the description or with the reason why you think it's unrivaled below this video. Let's dive in. So what is Nano-X Imaging, NNOX? So Nano-X is looking to revolutionize the medical imaging industry. The theory that they're articulating is that by using, and keep in mind it's theory, is that by using novel digital electrical mechanical system semiconductor cathode, we believe we can achieve the same functionalities as legacy X-ray analog cathodes. So that's straight from their IPO filings. And in short, hey, if we can use some sort of computer chips or electro chips, semiconductor chips, that can be way better than what was previously around. So instead of this old model where you're heating this filament to 2000 degrees Celsius, what if you have 100 million nanocones on a silicon chip emitting digitally controlled electron streams under low voltage? Like, could this be that much better than traditional, CT scan technology? Why is this important? And what they're looking to achieve is they think this is the legacy technology. You get put into this big donut, it spins around. You can't have any electronics on you or any, magnets on you, that sort of stuff. It's large and it costs millions of dollars. What they think they can achieve, they say they have a working prototype of the Nano-ARC machine, is they think at scale, it'll cost tens of thousands of dollars. It's a relatively small, relative to this big purchase, it's much smaller, takes up a much smaller space. And, they think it's going to save costs by over 90%, relative to the millions that existing technology takes for the imaging field. So, and then plus in the years ahead or months ahead, they're going to layer in this Nano-X cloud software where you throw in an AI angle so that the AI instantly looks at the images, and also, queues it up, works with the radiologist. But that way you can have an AI take a first look, first cut that says to the radiologist, like, hey, we think 85% chance based on looking at these thousands of scans prior, this is what we think is best. And that's, we've seen data like that with some of the leading AI pioneers, that radiology definitely is a potential field to get disrupted because AI can be that much better. So if you're layering in some sort of software, element to the hardware, you could definitely see the potential. Why is this a game changer? Like, obviously, saving 90% costs is a game changer. But the reason why it's a much bigger game changer than just this, and it's expanding the market, is because the equipment is so costly. 2/3 of the world's population doesn't have access to medical imaging, and the remaining 1/3 suffer from not being able to get it in a real-time way when they need it. And most scans, if you're able to get it same day, it's a reactive versus a proactive treatment. And the reality is, when you have a reactive, like, oh, something's broken, or oh, we got to do this, versus a proactive, approach. Proactive means preventative. You catch something before it gets bigger. What if you're able to get it so that it's so cheap you're doing this every year or every 6 months, and then you're able to catch things much sooner? Maybe you catch cancer much earlier than you otherwise would have. Well, it's much cheaper to treat these types of things like cancer when you catch it early versus much later on, when it's like, oh, it's starting to show up in these other places, or oh man, now you have this lump that we have to worry about. And then also, like, the global average cost per scan is $300. If this equipment only costs a few $1,000s, then you're dramatically, lowering what are the economics for those scans. So that way you can do it. This isn't actually the first time I've heard of this potential, which is interesting, because there's a company called Open Water. Mary Lou Jepson, she had a mind-blowing TED Talk on this actually a few years ago. Open Water, is her private company. Our mission: creating the future of medical imaging and beyond. Later this year, 2020, they're looking to roll out their technology for stroke detection in ambulances. So that way you can see, like, hey, is this person having a stroke? And that's actually what's going on. And you can see it in their blood flows. Currently, you can't see that with the current technology. And then later on, it's like, hey, maybe we can get MRI quality medical imaging 1,000 times cheaper, and that's even better than what they're targeting here in Nano-X. So they're saying, look, we're a few years away from this, but this is something we're definitely working towards. I would recommend checking out her TED Talk, because, like, if they're even able to achieve like 50% or 10% of what she talks about here, it really will be mind-blowing. Because the extreme is that she's like, look, using this technology, which can be much cheaper, and keep in mind, she was talking about using semiconductors, much like Nano-X is talking about. And she's like, look, we could actually track the blood flow, potentially the neural connections, and potentially see like what people's thoughts are. So that was like mind blowing when I saw it. I'd recommend you check out her TED Talk, just because I thought it was interesting. That said, I don't have a horse in the race with Open Water. Just interesting to see another company that's going in this direction of trying to revolutionize what is otherwise an industry with technology that's sort of been around for decades, that hasn't really been disrupted significantly. And it's really an industry where the cost of entry is millions and millions of dollars for this new equipment, versus when you're able to dramatically lower costs, it just results in revolutions. Okay, so the potential total addressable market is just huge, enormous. Like 10x potential would definitely seem possible, and we'll dive more into the numbers in a second. If you're saying 2/3 of the world population doesn't even have access to medical imaging, and now it only costs $10,000, like, yes, you are dramatically potentially opening up the market. And there are potentially multiple companies looking at this space to disrupt it. Now, it would be over years or decades. It's not necessarily going to be next month that this is going to happen. But what is, if this industry is going to get disrupted, you'd want to align yourself with a company that has a solid business model, a solid business plan. And so what is Nano-X's business model? And so they have a pay per scan model. And look, they've entered into an agreement with Foxconn. Think about the major, manufacturer assembly, company that assembles, iPhones in China. So they've entered an agreement with Foxconn for the production and assembly of 15,000 Nano-X.ARC units over the next 3 to 4 years. So that is a big commitment that they're saying, hey, we think we can do it. And the economics that they're working on with their customers is to say, hey, we are going to charge, or what we suggest you charge is $40 a pop, and then we get a 35% take, or about $14 of that $40 a pop. And that $40, that'll easily pay for the unit that you're paying for. That'll cost thousands of dollars. but like instead of you having to pay upfront, we're just going to have this rev share model where we're getting that 35% over time. So that way it's much easier to roll out the production if you don't have to put up this capital up front, instead of paying thousands and thousands of dollars. And so they show, and this is where it's interesting, is like, look, if you have 4,500 contracted units, and they say potential annual recurring revenue, assuming the 4,500 contracted units are deployed and operational. So they do have contracted units is what they're saying. And they're saying, look, if you have 7 scans per day with these units, assuming at 20, and here it is at 20 scans per day, $14 per scan, that's the net dollar amount that they're getting, and 23 days per month, because that's, effectively business days that are open. You're not going to be open every day. And so they're showing the range of possibilities from 7 scans per day to 60 scans per day, how their revenue, if they're able to successfully roll out, and let's say in the next 4 or 5 years, 4,500 units, you're talking about hundreds and millions in revenue. And this would be extremely profitable revenue because, look, it's a pay per scan approach. Once you purchase the equipment, or once the equipment at the end of the day is typically a low margin aspect of a business model. But if you're looking at a pay per scan approach, the incremental cost of an additional scan is really low. So your margins are going to be really high on this. So if the equipment becomes commoditized in the future, and Open Water, let's say, is successful in the future and they're a competitor or something like that, they could still have a very profitable revenue stream. And so like this has a lot of marks of a potentially exceptional future. If you have this truly revolutionary product, and you're able to sell it on a contracted basis so that it's pay per scan, you're effectively a toll booth on scans. This could be really profitable. And they're saying, look, we could roll this out potentially in the next 5 years, hundreds of millions of dollars, potentially even billions of dollars, depending on the utilization of these machines. And also Foxconn, which is the production and assembly, company, they also bought shares in Nano-X for a few $1 million. So it's like there's a lot of pieces that are kind of interesting here that are worth learning about. The question is, what's the probability that they can deliver on this, like deliver on these 4,500 units? As an example, Elon Musk has talked about like building a prototype's really not that hard. Getting to scale is much harder. And so what's the probability that they actually deliver on this? And so what we need to consider as potential investors is, first, that at this point, they don't have any revenue. This is a cost-only business. So like whenever you're valuing a company, you're valuing its future cash flows, and you're discounting back and saying, hey, this is all the profits that they're going to be generating, and look how much money I'm going to have as a shareholder. But right now, they don't have any revenue. So you have to first, you need proof to prove that they actually have the goods. Is there stake to this sizzle? And next, like, some customer interest is good to have. I would say it's not need to have, because if you have point number 1, which is proof that you have a revolutionary product, like if the tech is so revolutionary, customers will happen. They'll show up. On the second point, however, Nano-X seems like they do have a lot of interest, where they call out over 5,100 potential units that they have contracts for deals, and then they have strategic collaboration agreements for another 5,500 units. So like this is really interesting, and you can see it's all around the world: Australia, Taiwan, Italy, Spain, Russia, Belarus, and then you can see 3,000 units USA, 2,500 between Korea and Vietnam. Like if this is real, if they can deliver on this, then they could potentially hit those targets that we were just looking at in the last slide, where like, yeah, and let's be conservative, 5 to 10 years, they are doing over $1 billion in sales. And for a company with a market cap at this point with $1 billion, like, that is smelling interesting, because the margins on those, cost per scan or pay per scan is going to be high, I would think. So this is smelling interesting. And so here's the strategic agreement with SK Telecom, which was announced in June 2020. They had made some prior investments in Nano-X Imaging. So once again, skin in the game for them. And, they've agreed. This is part of the deal on the prior page that I was just looking at, where they're looking to deploy 2,500 Nano-X systems to clinics in South Korea and Vietnam. So this is interesting. They have work, they can help support their technology and sort of building it out. So the question is, do they have the goods though? Like I can show you the detail that gets you to these units, but once again, like needing to prove it is way more important than customer interest, because customer interest can be fabricated at the end of the day, or customers can just walk away from it if you're not able to deliver the goods. So does Nano-X have the goods? And it's too hard to tell, in my opinion. Like, from my perspective, why not wait a few months or even a few years to see if they actually get any paying customers? Oh, this is the reason why people can't wait, is because of greed and fear of missing out. People are like, I don't care that you don't have any revenue. I want to get that next, multi-bagger that's just going to shoot to the moon. I don't want to miss out. This thing can do really great. And, so that sort of forces me to go into the position of like, I, as an investor, don't generally invest in things that are pre-revenue. I like things that companies that have already proven their business model, proven that they have product market fit. So you've de-risked significantly. And then I'm interested in, if you've proven that you have product market fit, do you have scale potential? And if I start seeing that scale potential, there's potentially years ahead for me to ride that wave. But I don't have to get in before product market fit. I don't have, that's a whole other type of investor. Those are seed investor, venture investors, and God bless them. Like, some of them I'm sure can make a ton of money. A lot lose money. The vast majority underperform. But this is my game, how I want to play. I don't want to play that sort of game. But if I had to handicap it, like if I had to say, well, how would you underwrite it? Like, first, I would need to look at the facts, like look at what they do have. Two, I'd look at like the opinions. So like, talk to doctors. What do they have to say? What do they think about their tech and their demonstrations? Three, what sort of proof have they done in live demos? And then history, look at the founder's history. Like, a lot of people look at Elon Musk, and one of the key points that keeps coming up is like, yeah, like he's landing those rockets in the middle of the ocean. So if he thinks he can build this, I'm going to bank on it. There's proof in terms of, and he also did PayPal before that. So there's sort of like this track record, and track record is really important to sizing up whether or not someone's capable of delivering it. So I would definitely look at the founders, like, do they have good history here? Unfortunately, this is when the wheels potentially start to come off the bus in terms of the investment thesis. And there are at least two short reports on Nano-X Imaging. I actually, one was by Muddy Waters, one was by Citron Research. I personally love it when there are short reports on companies, because that is just a great way of creating a variant perception. Because like, I love to see what the short sellers have to say. And keep in mind, short selling is a dangerous game. Like, the risk reward is generally terrible on short selling, because keep in mind, your upside is capped at 100% if the stock goes to zero. Your downside is potentially unlimited. If something goes to the moon, just look at Tesla and all these Tesla shorts that have gotten burned over the years. So, if you're putting out a short report, like, you should be doing a lot of homework. And I, like, in the investment game, I'm in it to find out the truth about these companies. I want to learn, like, what's an educated person doing? Like, some of these short sellers are doing incredible amounts of research to tell you the truth about these companies. And so I'm interested in it. I generally don't take short reports as like a smear piece where they're just trying to like push the stock lower and then, lock in their gains on their short. Generally, that's not the case that I see. I see as them doing, a lot of detailed research, and like, it's really interesting to watch and to learn. So if someone ever has an opposite opinion from me, I want to learn from them, and I want to see the opposite perspective. I'm not just going to say, "Hey, rah rah, I own it, therefore it must be great." Like, let's see what the counter argument is. So here's where it just completely breaks down, in my opinion. I'd highly recommend you check out the Muddy Waters report. So they did a video. So this is Nano-X, imaging, where they did a video showcasing their technology but Muddy Waters actually calls out a lot of inconsistencies. Like as this sort of dummy is going through the Nano-X machine, they show the video of the scan occurring at the same time. And first of all, you would never do a scan like this, as the arms would get in the way of the chest. And so they're showing this sort of mannequin going through, but it does have this sort of, structural, body to it, and it's showing what the image is. And this is what Nano-X put out on. There's a full video to it. So once again, this is not how you do it. You put the arms up so that the arms don't block the chest. But let's keep going. And so they probably use someone else's data, or actually a real CT scanner's data. And so they call out how, the image on the left rotates while the one on the right largely stays the same. However, all 4 radiologists recognize glaring issues with the image on the left. The arms are pointed upward. You can easily tell this by looking at the collarbones in this image. So i.e., like, even though they showed a side-by-side of this and this image at the same time, the reality is, like, this scan does show that the arms should have been up. So they're clearly photoshopping and, picking and choosing what they're showing. And then, they talked to several doctors. So this is going to covering several points about, like, if I had to handicap it. One is, like, what's the proof? And so far, I'm not liking what I'm seeing. What do smart opinions about this? What would they say? And they're saying, they talked to 4 radiologists, and they characterized the image as exceedingly poor. They're talking about this. One remarked that this image was terrible. No radiologist would want to read images like that. 2 radiologists opined that the chest image seemed not to advance with the movement of the Nano-X.ARC. So as the body was going through the Nano-X.ARC machine, it's like the image wasn't actually lining up with it. And so one remarked that for this reason, those images certainly weren't acquired then and there. So, i.e., they're sort of picking and choosing what images they're showing for their technology. So it may not even be tied to their technology. Probably isn't, because here the collar, but here their arms are up versus in the other it's down. So after viewing the footage, one radiologist said bluntly, "That is very fraudulent for them to do that video. I suspect neither of these pictures are from that machine." That is pretty damning, in my opinion, from a radiologist. Like, I wouldn't want to see that. Let's keep going. But wait a second, like, there's going to be proof. Nano-X is going to have proof. They're going to do a live demonstration at the end of November, and that should be really exciting. They put out a press release. We all know how well live demonstrations can go. Here's Elon Musk demonstrating the unbreakable glass of his Cybertruck. That day, it clearly wasn't unbreakable. So I'm very curious, how their live demonstration goes. But as you can tell, like, I'm starting to get increasingly skeptical of this, especially after reading through the short reports, which I'd highly recommend anyone go through. Particularly the Muddy Waters report is fantastic. And so the next point that they go over, that Muddy Waters goes over, is, do they actually have any real customers beyond the potentially, complex relationships where people have put money into the company? Or several of their customers that they list, they point out that most of these customers are likely sham corporations, where the assumed addresses of these customers, and these are the customers that signed up for deals that are worth tens and millions of dollars, 10, 20, $30 million. Like, this was the home address because they weren't able to see the business address of the company. And this is another one. Like, this does not strike me as companies that are going to be doing, tens of millions of dollars in orders of equipment, of medical imaging equipment. Maybe I'm wrong, but maybe this is a bad way to look at it. But they actually, the Muddy Waters report actually calls out several other companies that just don't seem to have the sales to potentially even justify. Like, if you have a business that only has 4 million in sales, how are they possibly going to sign up for a contract to sell 30 million of these units that haven't been proven before? So, like, a lot of it just smells bad in terms of sham corporations. And the Muddy Waters report covers a lot more. I'm not going to go through all the key points here, but they call out how, like, the CEO, he previously helped run this company that ran this technology that allows you to charge your phones without actually having to plug it in, and it was rolled out in Starbucks and stuff like that. But that there were several lawsuits, and he overstated what his actual revenues were, and that this deal, Nano-X, was brought about by a firm that took let's say 3% of the IPO proceeds, and it was done by it was affiliated with an Israeli con man, and that the reason why SK Telecom is doing this deal is partly because they gave very favorable warrants to some of the people that work at SK Telecom. So this whole thing starts smelling real bad based on their report. So this is getting really tricky. So what are my summary thoughts? And this is too hard. If they actually have stake to the SIZZLE, then the potential is huge. Don't get me wrong. Investors indeed can make a lot of money. You have $1 billion market cap versus $1 billion potential revenue that's just scratching the surface, a couple thousand units, potentially tens of thousands of units in the future. But honestly, this is just too hard. There's just too many red flags. And why not wait until they have real revenue in place? I can wait. Yeah, okay, maybe it's a $3 billion company if they have real revenue in place and they're delivering, and I have to pay a 3x the current price. Okay, fine. But that I've significantly de-risked the thesis at that point because there's revenue. And the reality, and I think this is a point that's lost on a lot of investors. See, the reality is most of these people I feel like in Nano-X are probably speculators. And look, if you're an investor in Nano-X, feel free to leave some comments below on, why Muddy Waters is wrong. Give me some key points there. But this is too hard for me. And I recognize, if you're a speculator and you think, this is going to go to the moon, I wish you a lot of luck. I hope this technology could, revolutionize the world. I hope they deliver. That would be great. But for me personally, I can wait for companies to de-risk and prove that they have product market fit, prove that they have actual revenues coming in, actual cash coming in. And the point that I feel like a lot of speculators lose sight of is that for long-term investing, the best multi-baggers actually compound over years and decades. This is not a sprint for weeks or months. Oh, this is just going to zoom 300% in the next 3 months. That is not how the best multi-baggers, the multi-baggers that generate thousands of percent over time, potentially thousands of percent over time, is that you need this long runway, years, potentially decades, to get product market fit. You're unrivaled. Now it's scale. You stomp it out one market at a time. You just constantly increase your units. You sell more. So this is too hard for me. This company, I'm going to focus on other potential multi-baggers. I'm going to try to find other companies that I think are unrivaled, that have proven, product market fit. And for that, you can go to unrivaledinvesting.com to follow my personal journey to see what I buy, what I sell, what I hold. You can't take these shares away from me. I also, I'm developing educational series. There's exclusive content. And one of my goals is to identify potentially one potential multi-bagger each month for Journey subscribers at unrivaledinvesting.com. And remember, finding potentially one multi-bagger can change your life journey. So if you're interested in following my life journey, my personal financial journey, as I'm looking to buy these multi-baggers for my own personal portfolio, go to unrivaledinvesting.com, click on Journey, and thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, if you learned something, make sure you subscribe and hit that like button. Thank you so much.